About living our lives in freedom. So this morning we continue to burst into the future and increase our awareness of the possibilities that are ever present in our lives. Sometimes we're not aware that there are limitless possibilities, and we don't have to know where they're coming from or what they are. They will show up if we're open, because we are bursting into a fuller, freer, more expansive version of itself manifesting in us. So the infinite presence of life is ready and eager to burst forth into a future that has never been experienced before. And this bursting forth is taking place. And it is taking place in you and in me. Limitless possibilities available. So we've had some very rich experiences as we delved into expanding our consciousness this month. Getting specific about what we really want in life. Do we really know what we want? For the universe to provide us with a dream that we might have, we must know what we want. And many of us really are not aware of what we really want in our hearts. So to get us clear on that, I've carried out something that I started last week with the vision card. So you'll have one in your bulletin to take with you and use it during the week. And be specific, make specific statements on that. Carry it around with you at all times. And the 4 statements that I would like and encourage everyone to make would be what your dream is in relationship, what your dream is in finances, what your dream is in health, what your dream is in your career or how you show up in the world, how you express your creativity. And write positive, present statements and carry that with you and read it. Read it during the week, because the universe is being impressed with your thought. So think something that you really want to experience. Now, if you've missed any of those Sundays, they are on our website, on our video tab. We have a YouTube channel, and you can just click on that, and you can view it, especially last week, how we went over the vision for ourselves in great detail. So doing this visioning for ourselves and the other practical tools that we have spoken about this month, where the series has been Living a Life of Freedom, are very, very impactful and inspirational for you, especially when we really use it. Don't just hear it, read it, but use it, use it. And I love what Mary Morrissey, who is the author of, she's a New Thought minister, but she's also the author of the Prosperity Plus class that we are now in the middle of this exciting class that's just manifesting stuff for people all over the place. We're having a wonderful time in that class. But she says, inspiration without action is merely entertainment. So, you know, remember that. A little bit of action. You get the inspiration, you want to take the action to follow it. Otherwise, you're just being entertained. Wallace Wattles in The Science of Getting Rich writes, this is another book that we are using in that class, and I love that book. By thought, the thing you want is brought to you. By action, you receive it. So, always the first cause is the thought, but always the action is necessary, or else it just stays right where it is, no movement. So don't just be entertained by your inspiration. Take all the necessary actions. And another way of saying that is, don't just think about it, act upon it. Action. Today we're talking about a person of increase, because we're expanding, as Carol so beautifully read in her reading. We are expanding. Let's be conscious of that expansion. So to be a person of increase is a person, one who brings an expansive energy to everything he or she does. Think big. A person who sees greater and greater and even greater possibilities at every turn. A person of increase is a person who lives from the realization that we are immersed in, surrounded, and filled with the presence of good, and that within us, that presence of good is wanting to express itself. It's wanting to get larger. That's the natural state of the universe. God itself is always expanding. And a person of increase is a person who actually experiences increase in all the good that they bring into the world. So do you want to be a person of increase? Anyone here? Yes. Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear you say yes. Wake you all up. Because we're going to explore how to be that person right here, right now, today. So a part of being a person of increase is following the spiritual law of tithing. So we're going to touch on part of that today. So 10% of our financial good to the source, or the sources of our spiritual nourishment, is the first step in moving into that expansive increase. You have to keep it, you have to give it away sometimes. This is extremely important practice if you want to expand into that fuller, freer expression of the divine that you truly came here to be. If you want to live a larger life, a more expansive life, if you want to experience the highest level of God's good, you can experience, then tithing is one of the spiritual practices. It's a spiritual practice for you to engage in. And we don't know why 10% works. It's traditional, it's biblical, it's historical, in all the great traditions of the planet. This practice is thousands of years old. It's in Napoleon Hill's work. If anyone's ever read Think and Grow Rich, great book. It's in Wallace Wattles' book. All the people who woke up to a certain kind of living engaged in this, the transcendentalists, many of the New Thought authors, Ernest Holmes. You can have an ever-expanding experience of life, another spiritual practice. In order for us to truly live with a license of a higher order of being, as we've been quoting Henry David Thoreau throughout the month, we must be in harmony with the spiritual law that says we return 10% of our good to the source from which it came. All of our good comes from God, from an infinite, abundant universe, from a generous universe, from a loving universe, and in order to get in alignment with it, that giving is necessary. Now, don't think that I am saying that God demands us to give. No, that's absolutely not what I'm saying here. But what I am saying is that if we want to raise the level of our vibration, if you remember last week, you can't get there from here. So it's another one of those practices. We spoke about the frequency of our energetic vibration. Our dream is up here, and we're down here. This is another practical tool that gets us up, that keeps us moving. It keeps that law of circulation going. So if you truly want to be a person of increase, we must know there is one and only one source of all good. Well, we don't know why 10% is the magical number, but we do know that at 10%, there's a significant shift in our consciousness. And it will always keep us on our edge, right on the edge. Whether it's $3 or $300,000 that we're tithing on, it's always on that edge. So it just works. That's all I know about it, is that it works. And Catherine Ponder, who has written many prosperity books, talks about 10 being the magical number, the number of increase. And where do you tithe? You tithe in the place where you are being spiritually nourished. It does not have to be in a church. It does not have to be in this place here, although we don't mind it. It doesn't have to be here. It's where I've been tithed to personally, and I've tithed to people personally because they have inspired me. And I believe in the spiritual principle. So I'm sharing that with you today in order to help raise that vibration of increase to match our dream. We got to have that movement of energy. So we're also going to be quoting a lot from the Wallace Wattles book today because it's so powerful. It's a small little book, and you know, it's like I've said, it's the one that Rhonda Byrne was inspired by to write The Secret, and it's the one that got her on her journey. It really, I can see how Ernest Holmes was really inspired by Wallace Wattles when you hear some of the things he wrote. So let me share some additional ideas. In the beginning, he writes, the first one of the, chapter 4 is a key chapter in this book, and this is called The Impression of Increase. And he writes, the desire for increase is inherent in all of nature. It is the fundamental impulse of the universe. Every living thing is under the form of this urge of a formless intelligence within them, seeking a fuller expression. The law of perpetual increase, he writes, is set forth by Jesus in the parable of the talents. Only those who gain more retain any. For him who hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And because, he writes, it is the deepest instinct of their nature, all men and women are attracted to the one who can give them more of the means of life. In following the certain way, as described, and we're going to go into a little bit of description of that, you are getting continuous increase for yourself, and you are giving it to all with whom you deal. So this morning we're going to talk about, Wallace Wattles has different certain ways of thinking, certain ways of action. And it really comes down to what we in Science of Mind or religious science call the creative process, the thinking stuff. And what are we putting into the thinking stuff? So he writes, the first certain way. You are a creative center from which increase is given off to all. Be sure of this, and convey assurance of the fact to every man, woman, and child with whom you come in contact. No matter how small the transaction, even if it be only the selling of a stick of candy to a little child, put into it the thought of increase, and make sure that the customer is impressed with the thought of increase. Convey the impression of advancement with everything you do, so that all people shall receive the impression that you are an advancing man or woman, and that you advance all who deal with you, even to people whom you meet in a social way without any thought of business, and to whom you do not try to sell anything. Give the thought of increase. So what he's really saying there in a nutshell is, in every interaction, leave the person or the situation better than you found it. Walk in with an expanded consciousness. Give. Always be in that state of giving of yourself, giving of your time, your talents, your treasure. But always we expand. We expand as we give of ourselves. We feel better, and the world is a better place because we're giving from that source within us that is the truth, that is connected with the presence, the grace of God, that is the divine giver of all that is. God is always giving. It's always expanding. It can never contract. It can only expand. And that is our inherent nature. That is the essence of who we truly are. So we need to get in touch with that. And see, so the tithing thing helps us get in touch with that. In service helps us get in touch with that. Changing our thinking about playing small and being larger helps us get in touch with that expanded truth of who we really are. And so I feel really good when I see anybody who is successful. That's the other flow, is to be in gratitude for the success you see around you. I get so happy when someone is successful. It makes me feel good. And in that feeling good, my vibration then expands and becomes more successful. So it's not, there's never competition, right, in God. There's never competition. There is only harmony and peace and that expansion. And that is where we become people of increase. We increase our awareness of God. And so we increase that expansion of who we truly are and know what our gifts are and share them. I heard a beautiful story once written by a college student. This is a lovely story. And his experience with a classmate named Rose. And the story in his own words. He talks about the first day of school. Our professor introduced himself and challenged us to get to know someone in the room that we hadn't met before. I stood up and looked around, and a gentle hand touched my shoulder. I turned around to find a wrinkled little old lady beaming up at me with a smile that lit up her entire being. She said, "Hi, handsome. My name is Rose, and I am 87 years old. May I give you a hug?" I laughed and enthusiastically responded, "Of course you may." And she gave me a giant squeeze. "Why are you at college at such a young, innocent age?" I asked, the student asked. She jokingly replied, "I've come here to meet a rich husband, get married, have kids, and then retire and travel." "No, seriously," I asked. I was curious about what would have motivated her to be taken on this challenge at her age. I've always dreamed of fulfilling and finishing my college degree, and now I'm doing it. So after class, we walked to the Student Union building, he says, and shared a chocolate milkshake. We became instant friends, and I was always mesmerized listening to this time machine of wisdom and knowledge. Over the course of the year, Rose became a campus icon, easily made friends wherever she went. She loved to dress up to the hilt, and she just loved the attention that was being bestowed on her by the students. She was really living it up. And so at the end of the semester, we invited Rose to speak at our football banquet. And I'll never forget what she said. She was introduced and stepped up to the podium and got her prepared speech out, and then dropped her 3x5 cards all over the floor. Frustrated and a little embarrassed, she leaned into the microphone and simply said, "I'm sorry I'm so jittery. I gave up beer for Lent and the whiskey is killing me." And I'll never forget the speech. Okay, this is the speech. This is the part. So this is, she says, "Let me tell you what I know. This is what I know." So we laughed. She cleared her throat and began. "We do not stop playing because we are old. We grow old because we stop playing. There are only 4 secrets to staying young, being happy, and achieving success. You have to laugh and find humor every day. 2, you've got to have a dream. You've got to have a dream. When you lose your dream, you die. So many people are walking around in the state of death because they don't have a dream. They don't even know it. There's number 3. There's a huge difference between growing older and growing up. Anyone can grow older. That doesn't take any talent or any ability. The idea, let's see what we have. The idea is to grow up by always finding the opportunity in change. There's always an opportunity in everything that changes. And 4 is have no regrets. The elderly, I thought this was interesting. She said, the elderly usually don't have regrets for what we did, but rather for the things that we didn't do. The only people who fear death, she said, are those with regrets.